Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is for October 18th, 2024. Blaine, you ruined the show. My name is Bertie Bird, sitting right over there. She's back, everybody. It's Barbara Dunkelman. Say hey to Babs.
Hello. Now I don't have a voice for the rest of the podcast.
It happens. You better watch out. Yeah, you ever... one of our fellow voice actors turned me on to something called Singer's Friend. Have you heard of this? Singer's Friend?
Is that a tea? I've heard of throat coat.
It must be similar to throat coat because that's how I feel when I spray this stuff in my mouth.
Oh, it's a spray.
Throat coat. What is throat coat? Is it
I
a
think
tea?
it's just, it's type of tea. I don't know what's in it, but I've been recommended it many times from some fellow voice actors.
It's polyurethane in there. They just like coat your vocal cords.
I always think of that episode from The Simpsons where Homer drinks hot wax and it coats his throat so he could eat the spicy stuff, and then he has like a journey because he's eaten the spiciest chili possible.
Was that the weird one where he goes on like a hallucinogenic trip because he eats the chili?
He did his own throat coat.
That just always reminded me of like kids' candy commercials and cereal commercials when I was a kid that basically were telling you to do drugs, right? They weren't telling you to do drugs, but they were. Because
what kind of cereal commercials were you?
Well, the kids would eat the candy and their head would blow up and then explode. It was always like their eyes would get super big or something like
Silly
that.
rabbit, tricks are for kids.
You know what's a weird thing about, I noticed this even as a kid when I was watching actual cereal commercials. There's a weird trend of anxiety associated with selling kids cereal because it's always somebody's got the cereal, somebody else wants to take the cereal, and you're supposed to never give them like you're not supposed to give the Trix rabbit the Trix.
Yeah.
If the Cocoa Bird eats the Cocoa Puffs, it goes crazy. Barney was always trying to steal the Fruity Pebbles. It's the theme of selling kids cereal.
Right. I'm like, it's good. You don't have to convince me. I want the cereal.
Protect your cereal. It's like modern politics.
At what point in life, because I've already made the switch, where I'm now, my cereal every morning is All Bran Buds. When does that switch happen?
Is it just like tree bark and kombucha?
Literally, yeah. I'm like, I need the fiber. I need my tummy stuff.
There's a brand one that looks just like, it looks like twigs.
This one looks like hamster poop.
Well, the question is, if you want to know when that transition takes place, you actually work with somebody that we can ask that question to, which is John Reisinger. Because he eats, last time I talked to him, he was eating like, that was his cheat day. He would eat sugary cereals on his cheat day.
I think he still does. I think he's still a cereal boy.
That's like his luxury thing.
He does cereal and he loves comics. He's perpetually a teenager in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But cereal to me always plays in my biggest weakness, which is moderation. Which is like, what is moderation to you?
How much of this bowl should be cereal to milk?
It's a very relative term, right?
And who wants to steal it?
Here's my problem when I eat cereal. I pour the cereal. Then I put in the milk because I'm not a psychopath. Some people do the milk and then do the cereal.
Who?
I saw this one thing that somebody was doing where apparently it was a dad where he had a bowl of cereal and a bowl of milk. And he would take a bowl of the cereal and then dip it into the milk and then eat it. So it was like always like
a spoonful?
Like a first touch, always.
See, that I understand from a psychopathic perspective. Because you don't want to soak the cereal.
Right.
If you want it to always be crunchy and like fresh, I get that. But again, psychopathic behavior.
But I can understand it. I see where it came from.
Yeah. Was that guy Gavin?
What's that?
Was it Gavin?
No, it wasn't Gavin. Gavin doesn't seem like anybody he wouldn't eat cold cereal. I don't think I've ever seen him do that.
I don't know if I have either. But I've also never been with
breakfast
Gavin
is not a big
at breakfast time.
Yeah.
Other than at the waffle.
Or you go to like when we would travel a lot for work and you'd go to those awful like La Quinta hotel breakfasts, which are just like the most depressing thing in the world.
Yeah.
But it's like you're just so tired and you don't want to go to, out to eat or something like that to a nice little spot. So you just get the sad lobby breakfast. Yeah.
It's like those individual cereal boxes and the individual servings of milk, but no bowls somehow.
I appreciate that though, because that's the problem I run into, whereas I pour the cereal, put the milk in, I eat the cereal, then guess what? Got a little bit of milk left. Better pour some cereal in, and then I never and then I'm going back and forth, and I eat like half a box of cereal and half of a gallon of milk.
It's so that silly rabbit can't steal it from you. If you finish the cereal first,
That's what they taught me, Barb. At any second, someone's going to bust through the door and try to steal my cereal from me. Eat it while you got it, kids, because you never know when it's going to go away.
So before we get too far away from it, I have a bone to pick with you about the intro.
Oh, God.
You asked me today on this podcast if I would like to do the morning somewhere. I said, absolutely yes. On a podcast I was listening to, I believe it was the one with Blaine, you said every guest I've had on the podcast, I've offered them if they would want to do the morning somewhere yell. And you were like one of the first people to say yes. When I was on, you did not offer me the
Did I
morning
not
somewhere.
offer it to you?
No.
Well, I apologize. I had to apologize to Jason yesterday for this comment that comes back to haunt me that I said that. Because Jason actually did do the yell. Like, he did it. He did it. Yeah.
How was it?
Well, no, he did his the first time. Like, if you go back to Jason's first appearance. So technically, I really maligned Jason. He was the first person to ever do it.
Wow.
So, although Blaine was like, he set a new standard. That's all I'm saying.
Blaine was the standard. I was debating whether to go really big or really small with it because I didn't know what would make you laugh more.
Yeah, we never know. You and I, we always sat next to each other on the podcast. And I feel like sometimes we had a kind of our own little separate mini podcast there on the side where we just try to make each other laugh, you know, or whatever.
There's so many podcasts where you didn't hear something someone said, or maybe you did. I don't know if it was a bit. And you go, hit it?
Hep?
Or like some noise. And I would be like done for 5 minutes laughing at it.
If you ever meet Barb in person, you want to make her laugh, just make a dumb noise. I saw that when you got eliminated from, was it Last Laugh?
Last Laugh, yeah.
Yeah,
season
Trevor
2.
just walked up to you and goes, "Beep, beep, boop, boop."
He said pee pee poo poo time. And I was just like, I can't not laugh
And
at
that was a competition where if you laughed, you lost money, basically. And then she couldn't help herself.
Nope.
Yeah, but my big thing that I always knew would make Barbara laugh when she would just ask me, she goes, have you ever been to like a hotel lobby breakfast? I go, yeah. Just answer in the weirdest way possible, and it would completely derail
There's
you
something about
every single time.
The sound and the combination of what your face looks like when you do it, that just is so funny.
You were also, my go-to with you also was you also fell for always like the big build-up to just the wham bad
Like
joke.
when you would try to throw something into the trash and you'd be like winding up and then go,
Like I do this big elaborate setup, like I'm gonna do a big basketball shot, and I'd be like practice and be like, and then when I throw it, I just go like 2 inches off my hands. I go, eh. So I love letdown humor. I don't know why. I've
It's
always
such a
loved
good
it.
bit. It's such
I've
a
always
good
loved it. Well, since we're talking about traveling,
Yeah.
you're going to convention this
I am.
weekend, right?
I am. I'm
and I
going
got to
to.
ask you about this because I haven't done this in a long time. What's that like post-COVID, the convention scene?
It's pretty back to normal.
Is it?
It's tough though because before the pandemic, we were doing like fan expos, Comic Cons, like a lot bigger conventions. Now we tend to do like the smaller anime conventions that are still great, but it definitely is like a different vibe than those like big industry kind of conventions.
Pop culture cons that do everything?
Yeah. This is like, oh, we might be the big guests at these cons, which is saying a lot versus like, oh, Jason Momoa is at, New York Comic Con or something like that.
What was your most fun con where you were like special guests and like you had all the other special guests there?
Oh, man.
There was one that was really good for us. It was Vern Troyer before he passed away was there, and Christopher Lloyd was there. And it's crazy. Like that guy is like, I know he's kind of a meme now, but he's like, he looks like he's been the same age for like 40 years now.
Yeah, he does.
And it was just so cool. And it was like, everyone was like, knows him for Back to the Future. I'm really weird because I knew him as a character named Jim Ignatowski on Taxi, which had like Danny DeVito on it, and Tony Danza and Judd Hirsch. Oh my God, I watched it as a kid. Jim Ignatowski's such a fucking funny character.
How old was he when he was in that?
Man, that would have been mid 70s, so he was probably 80 back then. I don't know how old he is now. I think he's like 85 now. I just saw him in some commercial for some like DeLorean thing. I don't know what it was, but yeah.
It's funny because I think I've told the story on a podcast, the time he was very rude to me at a convention.
Oh, was he really?
Well, I don't want to say rude. I want to say passive, maybe is a more appropriate word. This was actually at a convention I went to with Aaron Zach. We were in Australia for Supernova. And we were some of the guests there. And for Supernova, they have all the guests stay at one hotel. And they get a shuttle bus to bring them to the convention. And this is when all the guests were like in the lobby of the hotel kind of waiting. Everyone was like chatting with each other. And Christopher Lloyd was one of those people. And knowing that my brothers are like massive Back to the Future fans, I was like, oh, like, we're all just chilling and talking. I'm not talking to him at the moment, but I'm like, maybe I could go over and just ask to snap a photo with him for my brothers. And I did that. And he just like looks at me and then like looks at the person he's like talking to. And he goes, maybe later. I'm like, oh, okay. And then like, I think it was his agent or something like that. She looked at me like I was a bitch, for lack of a better term.
Now looking back, what do you think it was?
I think he was just unsure if he was allowed to. Because
Okay.
at those conventions, it's pretty strict of like, not taking photos unless they're paid.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
I'm
Also,
like,
you guys were kind of backstage at that point too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
That can be a thing unto itself.
I get it. I don't want to,
Yeah.
and I've been in those moments of just like, oh, I don't know if it's appropriate to take a photo right now or whatnot. And it's nothing to do with whether I want to or not.
Right.
So maybe I just need to be a little bit kinder to him.
Have you ever had that moment personally though, where you're like I had this yesterday. I just got off a 9-hour flight where I had my previous day's flight canceled. So they put me in like overnight in a hotel. I don't stress about stuff anymore. I'm just like, I'll get there eventually. And I didn't have the kids with me. So it was like,
That probably changes things.
that would have been a nightmare if that situation. So I was like, hey, if I had to take this karma hit, like pay to the airline gods, I'll do it when I'm solo traveling and lose a day in Austin. But when I was getting off the flight and I was coming to Austin, I thought, oh, because I don't get recognized all that much anymore. But I thought it's going to happen. It always happens at airports. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I was coming back into Austin, so I was like, man, I probably look like Christopher Lloyd. My hair was all up. I thought, oh my God.
Somewhere between 60 and 85.
It's another good reason to have the coins with me. I don't have to disappoint people. Like I don't know if I'm camera ready at this point in time. It takes a lot to like make this happen.
No.
But at least I had my coins with me. I don't think I've ever had a bad interaction that I can think of. I mean, they were all pretty good. But I always enjoyed those cons. But most of the cons that we did were like we were going as Rooster Teeth or to a Rooster Teeth con.
Very different experience. Yeah.
Yeah, because we did those in London and we did them in Australia as well.
Also selling merch at the same time too. Like we'd have a booth that we were manning at the same time.
Fucking inventory.
Yeah.
Managing cash and everything.
Woof.
Yeah. It's a little different.
I don't know why you guys trusted me to do that.
Because we didn't want to do it. It was like, it was worth the risk.
That's very true.
I mean, I don't want to speculate, but it was, when we're selling a bunch of shirts and stuff like that, we would rotate between like signing them and doing them. I remember Gus always had the toughest time with that, where they were like, they obviously want Gus to sign it. Gus is like, I'm working the cash register. It's like, I don't know if it works that way, bud. They're gonna want you to sign stuff.
Yes.
You can't get away with it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I always, I always love Comic-Con and stuff, but you're right. Everything is kind of back to the way it was. Like, I was on a plane yesterday, packed shoulder to shoulder.
You'll still see some people with masks on every now and then, but like
somebody 2 rows away from me was coughing. I was like, nah, that's probably nothing.
yeah, it's fine. I mean, at this point.
But 4 years ago, I'd been like,
every head turns to them at the same time.
Calculating like vectors in the air and stuff like that.
I know. Yeah. I remember I flew a lot actually when the mask mandate was still in place.
Did you do conventions too when that was going on?
I did a few. Some started to come back, and like at first they had like the plexiglass in front of us and everyone was required to wear masks. And then I know we did an RTX where everyone was required to wear masks because that was like the rule of the convention center. And it's just so weird to think back on that because nobody, maybe give or take like 1 or 2 people I see at conventions now, no one's wearing masks anymore.
Yeah, it went immediately back to it.
Yeah.
It's crazy how quickly we all adjusted to what it was and then quickly all adjusted to what it wasn't.
Yeah.
We just all went back to normal so fast.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's pretty nuts.
Crazy. So what convention are you going to this weekend?
This weekend is, oh my gosh, Planet Anime, which is in Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. Lovely
Yes.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Weather should be nice. Weather here is quite nice.
Is Kansas City, Missouri next to Kansas City, Kansas? They have to be, right? Is it just like a city that's on the border?
Why is it Kansas and why is it Arkansas and not Arkansas? I've always thought that. But no, I don't know.
Let's go the other way. Let's pronounce it Kansas. I'm going to Kansas City.
Kansas City.
So there's a Kansas City, Missouri, and there's a Kansas City, Kansas.
Kansas. Oh, gosh, I think I'm going to Missouri.
Let me see. So Kansas City, Missouri, is it on the border? It's got to be on the border, right? Otherwise, that's lunacy if they did it any other way.
I don't think, yeah. Kansas City, I'm pretty sure it's in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, they're right. It's on the border, so I'm going to assume that Kansas City, Kansas.
Who are the Kansas City Chiefs? Is that Missouri?
I would assume it's whichever one is bigger. Oh, they're right there next. It's the same fucking thing. It's a city that's on the border of a state. Look at you guys getting all crazy with your borders in the middle of your own city. That would be annoying as shit.
Dude, I've lost track of where I've been at this point with all these conventions that we do. I try to get a magnet in every city we go to, like usually at the airport,
That's cool.
to try to really just remember, because people have been like, oh, have you been to this state before, or this city? And I go, I don't know. I can't tell you.
I just learned something that was like a wide held belief. This is one of those old moments that I had where I think you were talking about magnets when I saw you last time. Maybe it was in London when I saw you for the wedding.
Oh, could be, yeah.
And
Lovely wedding. By
it
the way.
reminded me that I was talking about getting magnets near like my iPhone and stuff. It's like, well, I don't want to get a magnet near because I don't want to erase it. And people are like, that's not how those work anymore, dude. There's like, it's not like a hard drive with platters spinning in it anymore. Magnets don't affect modern devices like that.
Hotel keys still get deactivated in your credit cards? Is that still a thing?
I don't know if that is a thing.
Okay.
They might have finally worked that out. Have you ever been to a hotel that had like the Bluetooth stuff on your phone where you get the app?
Yeah, it's very cool.
I think they just want you to install the app. I mean, there's no other way to do it, but
I know.
Yeah.
Well, what I've learned from all this traveling too, it definitely pays off to have like memberships with like where it's like Marriott or like some type of flight credit card. So
Yeah.
you get points and stuff like that.
so when you go to take a real trip, it's almost
paid
like
for.
you paid for basically with
Yeah.
all your business travel stuff.
It's very true. And it costs nothing. So I would suggest doing it.
And it's one of those things, especially when you're younger, when you hear you're going to be traveling for work, it's so fucking cool. And then business travel, you realize very quickly, is not like normal travel.
Not at all.
It's not glamorous in any way
You
whatsoever.
get to some DoubleTree by Hilton, and then it's like, oh, here's this boxed cereal for breakfast.
And it's like 90% airports.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like, it's like, or you're in the hotel or in a shuttle going back and forth, and that's it.
Well, like that happens all the time if we're going to, let's say, a cooler, quote unquote, city for a convention. People are like, oh, cool, you get to go to New York City. And it's like, I get in on Friday, I do the convention all day, I'm exhausted, so I probably go back to my hotel, and then I'm in the convention center all day for the con, and then I fly back.
Are you a social batteries goes up person or a social batteries go down person, like over time?
Down.
Down.
Definitely down.
Yeah. Ashley's a go down person as well.
Yeah. I at this point, we used to try to like go out more at conventions, like, oh, let's go out for dinner all together, and we still do that from time to time. But I think now that me and the rest of the Ruby crew are like, we're all in our mid-30s, we're like, all right, well, see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to order room service and go to bed at 9:30.
You'll be like the lady in the drop. Except it'll be when we're muted. You'll be like,
Crying.
yeah. And it's like there are some times where you do get out and you do get to go walk around, but most of the time it's like I gotta get back.
You're
to
so
life.
tired,
Or
too.
you're going back to work, and then you realize like, oh, I was working all weekend and I'm straight back into work.
Exactly.
What are you with? Yeah.
I realized something that did change since the pandemic. This isn't about conventions, it's about hotels. The room service now, usually that you get at a hotel, it's delivered to you in like a to-go bag. I rarely have been at a hotel with room service that's actually like, here's a plate with a cloche on it and like actual silverware and glassware.
Oh, and then you couldn't figure out what to do with it after. Were you one of the people where you called them to come back and get it, or you just put it outside the
I
door?
put it outside the door.
It's like,
My shame.
and now that you say that, I never thought about that. Since I've been in hotels, I don't see the trays like laying in the hallways of just people's random food.
It's all disposable stuff now.
interesting.
Yeah, and also like really not great quality anymore, which I know like the concept of room service to me was always very fancy and luxurious, but it's like, well, that's just my meal for the night that I'm having.
I know what you mean. It was like a whole thing. Like the person would come to the door, they would wheel in the cart, and then the cart would fold out to a table.
Yeah.
They would explain everything to you.
Yeah.
And now what do? They do like the Uber Eats thing where they drop the bag, knock, and run,
No,
essentially?
they still make you sign for it and stuff like that, but it's
okay.
like, here's a literal paper bag.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I
Tip me
haven't,
20% for literally carrying this up to you.
I haven't done it in a while. My routine in a hotel is always the same thing. I go in.
AC down.
I put the AC as low as it will go because I'm not paying for it. I turn it. It's like basically a refrigerator, and then I just sleep as much as I possibly can. That's
so good.
That's what I do in a hotel every single time. Or do you lower the temperature?
No way, dude.
No way. You're the opposite.
I
Right?
usually get into a hotel room and it's way too cold, so I just like go all the way to like 73, 74, and then just like toasty.
Did you have to convert to Fahrenheit?
No, actually.
You were always Fahrenheit.
Specifically for indoor temperature, I've always been Fahrenheit.
That's interesting.
But
That's interesting.
outdoor temperature, I was Celsius. It's weird. Our home was always kept at like 72, 73, around there.
Yeah.
But when I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be 22, outside.
That's way too fucking hot. It's, by the way, this is all the same degrees Celsius, but you still say 72, 73. I'm like, it's got to be like 70. That's all about the same in Celsius. It's all 1 degree. But Fahrenheit people are like, no, 0.5.
0.5. It makes a huge difference.
Huge difference. I'm like a lizard in a tank. I need my precise temperature. I know what you mean, though. I'm that way, but the way that it manifests with me is I am Celsius for cold temperatures and I'm Fahrenheit for hot temperatures.
Yes.
Like I'm Fahrenheit for cooking. I'm Fahrenheit for summer hot weather. When it gets down towards freezing, I'm 100% Celsius. Like once it gets under 10 degrees Celsius, I just switch over to Celsius. Don't know why. That's just the way I do it.
Why is that for you? Because for me, that makes sense because I grew up in Canada with Celsius. So I know the cold temperatures in Celsius better than I know it here because it's never been, well, not never. Rarely is that cold here in Austin. So I'm not used to being like, oh yeah, it's 32 here or 25. I don't know what that means in Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
But I know what 5 degrees Celsius feels like.
Yep.
I know what negative 10 degrees.
You definitely know 0, right?
Yeah.
You know it's freezing. To me, that's like, maybe that's what it is. It's such like a hard line of like, it's freezing now. Now I got to fucking pay attention to my pipes and everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
I'm also the same way with measurements. Like I prefer millimeters and centimeters for smaller measurements, but I would never measure anything in kilometers. It's just like I have no idea how far that is.
Yeah. Other than a 5K, right? That's it.
Do you ever work out when you go travel in hotels?
Yeah, sometimes.
So it's really great when you get like on a metric treadmill and you're like, it's like 16 km. And you're like,
it's like when you're walking on a moving sidewalk and you feel like you're like Iron Man.
Yeah. You're like, I'm a fucking booking it. Meanwhile, it's like 7 miles per hour.
Yeah.
But we should talk about something that's in the public news these days out there in the world.
This is a news podcast? Yeah.
Well, I like to cover at least one like modern topic because I want to get people's take on it.
I'm just kidding because I do listen every day.
So the FTC. Oh, you're not like Matt Hullum?
Does he not listen to your podcast?
So we were just talking about the yelling of the Morning Somewhere. And I had to apologize to Jason for it yesterday. And he pointed out afterwards, he goes, it was funny because he listened to Matt's episode. And Matt, when I started yelling the intro, Matt was like, what's happening right now? What's going on?
Yeah.
And Jason was like, what a great way to reveal you've never listened to the podcast ever. Like Matt was like, why are you screaming at me? But so the FTC just recently in America has now passed this law, a very EU law or guideline, or it's about to become a law.
EU.
Where they now call it the click to cancel, where it has to be for any kind of subscription service or a gym membership or something like that. It has to essentially be as easy to cancel it as it was to sign up.
Yes.
I love it.
It's about time. There are so many services that I've signed up for in the past where it's like, oh, you have to call this number and talk to someone to cancel it. I'm like, that's bullshit.
It's total bullshit. Or you have to I even hate when I have to unsubscribe from an email. And I know that's not this. And then they say, well, tell us what email address you want to unsubscribe from. It's like, give me a fucking break.
It's like, what email address.
I don't want to type in my email address and hit submit or anything like that.
Or also, some of them are so sneaky about it because they'll be like, oh, click here on the things you want to stay subscribed to. Or it's like the other ones will be like, click what you want to unsubscribe for. So it's always different on everything.
Yeah. And there's another part to this too, because you and I would often be in meetings because I felt like for some reason you and I ended up in a lot of meetings together where we talk about brand stuff as well. And we'd always have things like when we talk about like this, laws like this existing are very helpful for people to have those kinds of discussions in meeting rooms, because we would have something, and this is not a specific example, but I'm going to use it as an illustrative example. Like we would say, like, why does it take 3 clicks to unsubscribe? And people don't like this. Why does it take the 3 clicks? And like some manager whose job it is and who's measured on retention is like, because that's literally the industry standard and it's what every other company does.
Right.
And then you and I are at the end of the table going, yeah, but it sucks.
Right.
And it's not cool.
It's not a good experience.
And then other people are like, that's not a compelling business reason. You're telling me I can't do my job because it sucks. It's like, but now we could go in that room and go, it's not legal. You know, it's
suck it.
Yeah, right. And it's like, it makes those discussions a lot easier.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that are having those discussions right now.
Right. Man, I've been watching clips from the Michael Fassbender, Seth Rogen, Steve Jobs biopic they did, where Michael Fassbender plays Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm. What was that called? Was it
Don't
called?
know. I think there was
Jobs?
a couple of them at the same time.
Yeah, I know Ashton Kutcher did one too.
He
right?
did. He did one as well. But yeah, it's crazy. Just like, dude, they had these like toe to toe screaming at each other arguments. And if that's the way that really was, that's crazy to me.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either, you know?
I mean, I know even with, when we worked at Rooster Teeth, there was a lot of disagreements about things. And I feel like there was people on either end of the spectrum of like people who were like, this sucks for our community. And other people being like, but this is a better business decision.
Right.
And
Like, I was hired to do this. You hired me for my expertise, which is a great argument to make. It's
Sure.
like, you need to trust me to be able to do this. It's like, yeah, but we don't do it that way.
also, you need to trust me as
Right.
well.
Like, well, it's not 2003 anymore and that kind of thing. But
Right.
that's why that's a completely anecdotal and intangible like benefit for something like this. But man, I could definitely see that benefit of going like, thank God that kind of thing is off the table.
Yes.
100%.
100%.
Or even people are like, yes, it does suck. And I agree it sucks, but everyone else in the world does it this way. And I'm being measured the way everyone else is. So I have to do these things. I'm forced to do these things.
Yeah.
And it's great that's the kind of thing the FTC should do and take that off.
Regulations, right?
Regulations can be a dirty word, but not always.
Sometimes it helps.
Yeah. Unless it's a podcast. We should say that. Or regulation. Those shitty regulations.
I was going to say, are you shitting on the regulation podcast? I just realized that they're called the regulation podcast.
I like they chose a name for their podcast, which means like something that's really carefully managed.
Yeah. Do you think anyone has like stumbled upon that podcast and thought it was a thing about like FTC regulations?
Is this the OSHA podcast? I bet it's not. All right. Well, if you are in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas this weekend,
I won't be there.
you should go visit Barbara at the convention Planet Anime.
Planet Anime.
Planet
yes.
Anime this weekend. And you can also see all the other lovely leading actresses from the hit anime show Ruby.
Rowabi. And listen to Stinky Dragon as well.
And listen to Stinky Dragon.
Yeah.
How do you like being a business owner, Barb?
Dude, it's so great. I'm not going to give specifics on this, but there was something that we put in the podcast that needed to be cut that ended up being released. And one person brought it to our attention. And we're like, okay, we'll just go in, cut it, and re-export it. Easy peasy. And we're like, we don't need to ask someone to do this or get permission or go through like multiple departments to make sure that this is done and like re-upload it and all this stuff. It's like, we just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's so many things like that where it's like, oh, we want to do this. Let's do it.
And it's also your fault that it was in there to begin with, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, you know what the problem is, and it's like, yeah, I made a mistake, and now I have the ability to correct that mistake as well.
It's easy peasy.
And I mean, how do you like the whole part of it? Because is it fair to say that like all of your fellow employees are also co-business owners, kind of a thing?
We're all co-business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah, all 7 of us.
Have you guys yet made the leap? Do you have an employee yet?
We have contractors.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
some assistant editors. We have some people who've done art for us, thumbnail design, all sorts of things. So yeah, we have a lot of contractors that have worked for us already, which is really exciting. But it is very interesting because any decision we make, we're going, this directly comes out of profit, technically.
Right.
So we all as a group, and it's good that we're 7 because everything could be voted on. Because
Very cleanly.
very cleanly.
Unless has anybody abstained yet?
No, but there's been some things that people are just like, I'm indifferent.
You don't get to do that. Yeah.
I've done that a few times where I'm just like, I'm indifferent to this, but I'll lean this way just to make it easier.
Yeah, because you need that clean odd number in
Yeah.
order to have the majority. Yeah, that's a nice number. 7 is a nice number to be able to do that with.
It's a nice number. And
And
there-
how far are you guys into campaign 3 right now? You're 3 episodes in?
we have just released our 2nd episode. Technically 3 episodes if you count Second Wind, which is like our bonus show for Patreon members and Beacon members because we're on Critical Role's platform now as well.
How you liking that?
It's very exciting.
Is it tough? I've watched you guys have to very clearly message the relationship with Critical Role, but then
Yeah.
also have to remessage because people will say, "Oh, it was nice you guys were bought by Critical Role."
Right,
I'm
which is
saying
not
that out
the case.
loud, which is not what happened.
Yes.
Just to be perfectly clear, it's not what happened.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up because it's a difficult thing to communicate of this is a licensing agreement. We've licensed the show to Critical Role so they could have it on their platform as well.
Yeah, it's just platform.
They don't own us. We're still independent. We still rely very heavily on support from Patreon and other ways that people are supporting us, whether it's our merch store or, other ways to support. We're not owned. We're still independent. And so I think a lot of people maybe misunderstood what was happening, which is fine. It's kind of...
Makes sense.
It makes sense that people would be confused. But I think it's still really exciting that we're on Critical Role's platform and we're working with them because they're like the biggest name in D&D. And they're so kind and welcoming and just like the coolest people.
Where did that industry come from? Where D&D is now like a full-fledged industry.
Dude, it's huge.
It's crazy.
Honestly, and I really do give the credit to Critical Role for being like the leaders in that.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a thing that was always around, I feel like, but Critical Role really kind of got that, mass appeal.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Amazon animated series and
Vox Machina,
everything
yeah.
else as well. And it's great too that then they're helping other creators because they have that whole engine in place. We know what that's like,
Yeah, very
and
true.
it's really great that they're doing that and making that effort. I love it.
Me too.
I always think of it. I always
Big
said
fan.
it was like a let's play tabletop genre,
Oh,
kind
interesting.
of, because you're playing it. What I like about it is in the post Rooster Teeth environment, I love that it's a narrative narrative piece with characters. Like it's
Yes.
a fictional thing. It's not. The personalities definitely come through, but it's still a performance and it's still characters, which I love.
Yes.
And I'm personally like hoping to get back to that soon myself as well.
We should get you as an NPC on it at some point.
There has been, I'd love to do that. I
Yeah.
would love to. There's been, a lot of, in the post Rooster Teeth, a lot of leaning into the personality driven stuff because it's, the quickest to get out there, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to when the narrative people, the people who worked on more of the scripted content, the stuff when they start to put it out too,
It takes a lot of thought. I think the reason why unscripted stuff was so common is just like it needed, rails to a degree of what the show would be. But ultimately, we're ourselves. So we could just play within those guardrails and kind of make it how we want it to be. Whereas like a scripted series or anything like that, you really have to have it well thought out.
And you guys have great music, soundtrack, sound design.
That's all
as
Micah.
Well. Yeah, it's amazing.
Micah Reisinger, he's incredible. He does all the writing, composing, editing, all that stuff for the show. Sound design.
Yeah, he seems like just a really great find, you
Yeah.
know? And there's the whole Reisinger family on that side. They're like,
Yeah.
mom creates the puppets, right? And
Yeah.
everything else too.
And I would argue that the puppets is the reason why we're where we are today.
I think I wrote you every time you put out a puppet video.
Yeah,
I loved
you love
I
those.
love those puppets. I tried to get Blaine to bring them over when he came to see us in Scotland to go, we could go around to castles and stuff and take photos of
I
them.
know. We wanted to get those out there, but they're currently with the Critical Role team. They're taking some photos with them.
I think everybody just wants to hang out with the
They want
puppets.
to hang out with them. They're cooler than us.
I think that's what it is. All right. Well, if you are in Kansas this weekend, why not take the trip out to Kansas City to see Barbara and say hello? And you can even snap a photo. She won't be like Christopher Lloyd and go, maybe later.
Unless I'm in the bathroom.
Although you have looked the same age for 20 years, so you're on your Christopher Lloyd path.
Thank you.
All right, well, that does it for us today, October 18th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you on Monday. We hope you all will be here as well.
Bye, everyone.